welcome back, everybody, to the Breakdown Podcast YouTube channel. I'm Jedi Master NK Ogonzo, and with me today is my partner in crime to talk the Bad Batch, MK51.
I'm going to need to see your chain code, sir.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Breakdown Podcast YouTube channel. My name's Corey, and today, Vic and I, we're going to be talking the first and second episodes of the Bad Batch.
Woohoo! It's finally here. I'm so happy.
Yeah, I first of all didn't know about this show until you mentioned something, and they already had, one episode was out.
Right.
I didn't get around to watching it until episode 2 was out, and then and watched them like in 2 days. It was obviously not that long of episodes. So I know nothing about this. I haven't watched the Clone Wars. I've probably seen an episode here or there, but I don't really know much about what happened in that. I still have to go back and rewatch all the episodes.
Right.
And some of the stuff will probably make even more sense when I do. However, I do have some knowledge of what's going on. And I've known about the Clone Wars, and I know obviously this takes place right at the end of it, so it's going to be an interesting ride. I remember obviously Grand Moff Tarkin,
mm-hmm.
and the things with the giraffe necks.
The Kaminoans.
Sure, that's what you call them. I remember that from episode 1.
Right.
And that's pretty much it. I don't think there's too much that I recognized. I'm trying to think over the 2 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah,
that's really the only thing. So let's break it down.
All right. So, as you all know, I am a huge Star Wars fan myself. So when this came out, I was just beside myself happy. When they introduced the Bad Batch in the final season of Clone Wars, it was a little bit of a surprise. Like it was a set of characters that were just like, you're going to really introduce an entirely new aspect of this show in the last season. And then I was like, okay, they did it because they're going to make a show.
Yeah.
They had to have done that because they knew they were going to make a show. And sure enough, we've got the Bad Batch.
Yeah, you should have seen that coming with all the shows that we watch. And
yeah.
Try and throw in these random characters, and it's like, what? Oh, spinoff.
Yeah, exactly. So this particular spinoff, like you said, it kicks off at the end of the Clone Wars, right as Order 66, which, as we know, is when the Republic turns to the Empire, the Emperor enacts Order 66, and Order 66 is when all of the stormtroopers turn on their Jedi generals and allies and murder all of them. And this episode,
you know what? When they said that, I was like, my ears perked up. I go, "Ooh, I know that." I know what that is.
Right. So this episode starts out with Jedi Master Paba Billaba and her Padawan Depa Billaba. No, Depa Billaba and her Padawan Caleb Dune. And her Padawan Caleb Dune, who is another character from a future Star Wars show, which is called Rebels. This is Caleb. This is the same guy that's in that show. So you'll see him a little later on, and may possibly he's gone, but they will bring him up and they will reference him, I'm sure, coming up in depending on which road they take with the Ahsoka Tano show and also the Mandalorian. So we may see his name pop up again there in that. But basically Jedi Master Billaba and Doom are on Collier, and Order 66 is enacted. The stormtroopers that are with them basically kill the Jedi Master, and it was right as Caleb, her Padawan, had gone to get reinforcements to help them fight off the fight off the droid forces. And when they should come back, which is, I think, one of my things, she's like, did you get reinforcements? He's like, yeah. She's like, how many are coming? He's like, 5. She's like, what? What do you mean 5? And he was like, you'll see. And they show up, and as always, they wreck shop.
I thought the Padawan had the voice. I didn't realize the Padawan was supposed to be young.
Yeah.
Because of the voice.
Right.
And I got to call this out. Because I legitimately thought that it was a little person.
Right.
Or I don't know what, forgive me, I don't know what the correct term is.
I think a little person is the right term.
Yeah. And because of the voice totally threw me off. I thought they either should have recast that or,
just modulated it down to give it a higher pitch or something like that. That would have worked too. It's something that they could have fixed. Sense. They definitely could have fixed that in post to be able to make him sound more like a kid. But he did. He sounded like a not really like a full grown adult, but he sounded like a teenager, like an early 20 something, not like a 12-year-old, which is what he's supposed to be at the time around
and
that.
When we get to it, I'll mention the other time that happens.
Yeah. So basically, the Bad Batch show up. The Bad Batch is comprised of a group of clones that were purposefully their creation was tampered with. So it's either like each one of them has a specific ability that makes them who they are, but it also separates them from being the model clone trooper that they're based after. So they do look like the clone troopers. They look like Rex. They look like all those guys. Well, no, they do. If you look at it, it's every one of them have the standard clone trooper face, but they've changed them. So Hunter's face is kind of more hollow, like where they made his cheekbones really thin and like sharp. Wrecker is the same face, just bigger because he's much larger than all of them, so he's got a slightly bigger head, so they made him more of a rounded face. And even Tech is just like a really skinny kind of gaunt like nerdy looking guy, but it's still all the same basic face, but those changes that they made to it kind of changes up their look. And with each one of those,
have a favorite?
Wrecker, of course. And I always love the big guys that like to. Oh, yep, always the tank, exactly. But yeah, and then I think secondly, I think that Hunter. I like Hunter. But it's always going to be Wrecker. Wrecker's my man. But so you have Hunter, you have Wrecker, you have Tech, you have Sniper. Sorry, not Sniper. Crosshair. Those are
Widowmaker.
Those are the actual
Deadshot.
Those are the actual Bad Batch. So those are the original Bad Batch. Echo, who's the 5th one that's with them, the one that's kind of a cyborg, he is not actually one of the Bad Batch, which is the Batch 99. He is actually an actual drone, clone trooper who was captured, tortured, and then like rebuilt in the Clone Wars. So that's where you're going to kind of like, that story is something that you might want to kind of check out. Because...
Wait, is that the same Echo as the little kid?
No. Omega is the little kid.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Echo's the one with the one arm, and he's got R2-D2's little like fidget thing on the end of his arm, his little fidget spinner. That's who Echo is. So Echo is not actually originally part of the Bad Batch. There are 5 Bad Batch clones in this group. Echo is the 6th one, and when I say there's 5, that's because a little later on they're going to introduce another
spoiler
tampered clone. So after the Order 66 is put out there, basically the Bad Batch is not programmed the same way as everybody else. So they're inhibitor chips that make the clone troopers enact Order 66 and actually follow that order, even though they don't necessarily want to. Isn't there for them. The problem with it is Crosshair is so, I guess his militaristic training is like, you follow orders. And he doesn't even know what Order 66 is, but Order 66 seems to be that they're shooting the Jedi. So he's like, I'm going to shoot the Jedi too, because that's what the order was.
They said later that his chip wasn't fully...
It hadn't been... well, it hadn't fully been... the way that they rebuilt their cerebral cortex or whatever it is... doesn't quite react the same way as the Clone Troopers does. Crosshairs also does not work, is not as damaged as the other threes are. So it kept him from, it made him kind of want to follow the order, but still not understand what the order is, because his inhibitor chip didn't be like, his inhibitor chip wasn't like, hey, turn around, shoot that Jedi because I told you to. His inhibitor chip was like, hey, there's an order out there you should probably follow. And he's like, yeah, that sounds about right. And a little bit later on, Wrecker finds out that Order 66 is to kill the Jedi, and he relays that back to Hunter and Crosshair, and he's like, yeah, that about tracks. And at that point, Crosshair's like, okay, let's find this kid and shoot him because he's a Jedi, and, you know, good soldiers follow orders. And that's what he kind of goes through the whole time. And that's kind of it's not really brainwashing, but I think that's the imbalance that he has. He's weird anyway. Like, his character is very his character is just super
he's like creepy.
Yeah, exactly. That's the exact word I'm looking for.
He's like, you'll find bodies buried in his backyard.
Exactly. So after him and Hunter chase down Caleb Dume, they don't end up. He sends Sniper. I keep wanting to call him Sniper. Crosshair tries to shoot him, but he's a Jedi. He's a Padawan, but he is a very well-trained Padawan, so he deflects the shots. He eventually gets a shot on him that knocks him out of a tree, and Caleb actually knocks out Crosshair by using a force push to knock him against a tree, and he goes out. Then he basically backs off of Hunter, and Hunter's like, dude, just come with me. We'll figure this out. You don't need to run. It's okay. I'm not actually going to try to kill you. I don't know what's going on either. Let's figure this out together. And Caleb's like, yeah, right. I'm out. And he force jumps over a chasm. And that's when Crosshair shows up. He's like, dude, what happened to the kid? He's like, yeah, I stunned him when he tried to jump. He's down there. He died. And then they end up going back to Kamino to check in with their masters. I don't know. Cause they're not part of, they're not part of the standard, drone army. They are literally like a mercenary force, like a special forces unit that's dispatched from Kamino, not dispatched by the Empire or the Republic at the time, because they didn't know about them, for one, and other than like word of mouth. So it wasn't like it was something where they were conscripted by the Empire or the Republic to do what they wanted to do. They literally lived on Kamino, and they were sent out by the Kaminoans to do jobs. But when they get back, they're just we kind of get to see what their life is like. Unlike most troopers who are assigned to ships and that kind of thing, they live where they were born, and they have their own little bunk in there, which is
there's they're all in one room.
Yeah.
You'd think they'd at least get their own room.
Well, I mean, they're squad, and usually if you're in the military and you're in a squad, they're all in, when you go to a barrack, everybody's in the same thing. It's just like a barrack.
Brothers.
Yeah, it's like a barrack.
They're basically brothers. You don't want to stay in the same bed with your brother until you're 50.
They're also military, and military is a different thing. So and they're programmed to always do that. So they get back, and they're kind of interacting. We see that the other clones don't like them. They pick on them. They give them a hard time. And as they are kind of navigating their way around Kamino, we meet another clone, and this clone is also a hybrid, or a bad batch, as they put it, and it's actually a young girl named Omega. She's probably like 12, 13 years old, maybe. She's still a kid, one way or the other. But again, they just did not give her a child's voice. She is voiced by a grown woman, and she sounds like a grown woman.
Come on. Disney, we expect Well, we probably been saying we expect better for a long time. But...
yeah, it's pretty much not. That's not going to happen, dude. That's not how that works.
I guess we can't expect much else. There we go. There's the truth.
But she's working on Camino as an assistant to oh man, now I can't remember her name.
Giraffe Lady.
It's not her name.
What's her name now? Gargamesh.
Oh, I had her name too. We were talking about it the other day, and I had her name, and now I can't remember what it was. Nala Sue, that's her name. Nala Sue. She is the she's the in the movie. In episode 1, we meet Nala. Or is it 2? Episode 2, right?
The what?
Or is it episode 1 where he goes and meets the clone army? My brain's not working on that.
I think that's in episode 1.
Okay, so episode 1, when Obi-Wan goes to Kamino to track down basically the clone army, he meets Nala Sue, and she's in this. And Nala Sue's assistant is a little girl who is also a clone. And at one point,
is she in the movie?
Yeah, when he first shows up and he introduces him to Jango Fett, that's Nala Sue. That's that character.
Oh. That's
the same one, as well as the Prime Minister, who is also the same character in the movie. We meet her, and she's like, "Oh, this is my assistant." And at that time, Grand Moff Tarkin is there, and he's like, "Well, how many of the Bad Batch are there?" And he's like, 5. And he's like, "Oh, okay." And then he looks at them, and he sees 5. And I was like, as soon as they said that, I was like, "No, there isn't." There's 4 Bad Batch. Like, I didn't even, like, right away I didn't say, like, oh, she's one of the clones. Like, I was like, oh, they made a girl clone. And I was like, okay, whatever. But it's more than that. And we find out later on that she's more than that. But she considers herself part of the Bad Batch because she's not like all the other clones, which makes sense. Which technically, if you really think about it, Boba Fett could be considered part of the Bad Batch because he was an unaltered clone, which makes him not like all the other clones that were created for the clone army. So he would be part of the Bad Batch as well, technically. And I don't know that this would be the time that now, because he would have been gone by then. Yeah, he was gone by then. But with her there, he's like, oh, there's 5. And I'm looking at it going, no, there's 4 of them in the Bad Batch. And then there's Echo, who's not an actual Bad Batch clone. But then, like, shortly after that, I was like, oh, I see what they did there. Okay. I see what you did, Star Wars. I'm okay with it. But Grand Moff Tarkin is the problem in this episode. He has shown up. They rally the clone troops that are being prepared on Kamino. The Emperor does his speech about, it's the first galactic empire and blah 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 blah.
You know what? Seeing something like that is just creepy.
But the cool thing about it is they've used the exact scene from the movies, from the books, from the TV shows. All like that scene is exactly the same in every media that they've created that hits this time point.
Oh no! I'm not against it.
No, I'm just saying. I think
scene like that itself.
I think that's cool that they've done that, mainly because like it ties everything together. Like it gives you a point of reference of exactly where we are in the show. So we know that it's directly after he took over, directly after he got his butt handed to him by Mace Windu. And then he's like, oh my God, these Jedi, they tried to kill me. They're traitors. Order 66. Like, all right, dude, I see. But Tarkin shows up at Kamino and he's like, I'm going to evaluate your clone troopers. And he's, Lama Su and the Prime Minister are like, we have a contract with you to provide these soldiers. Why are you here? And he's like, no. You had a contract with the Republic. We're now the Empire. We're changing the deal. Like, oh, the same guy signed the contract, even though they played it off. So that's actually not even, that whole contract is not legally binding at all. Now that I think about it, I don't know why I'm talking legalese during Star
I don't know why
Wars,
you're going the legal route either, because it's off Tarkin.
Either way, he's like, I could conscript an army and get volunteers to do the same thing for a lot cheaper than what it's costing us to get these clones from you. And that statement right there is kind of the start of the downfall of the clone army. And basically what ends up happening, I know you don't want me to get into lore, but I'll do this real quick and real short. What ends up happening over time is all of those clone soldiers end up aging out after a while, and then they become like training officers for all of the new volunteer stormtroopers who can't shoot. Because the clone troopers can shoot, but the new army can't.
Are you sure it's that they got older, and because they're getting older, they can't see the targets, and then they trained the new guys, and the new guys, that's why the new guys miss everything?
I know you saw Training Day, right? Imagine Training Day in Star Wars. That's what happens. They all they get old, they get grumpy, and then they start, they're training all these new things. So, but that's what ends up happening. So a lot of them end up basically getting decommissioned. Some of them end up getting tortured and turned into kill machines. But that's what ends up happening to them. So when he's like assessing what he wants to do, we already know where it's going to end up going, but he's there. And as he's there, the Bad Batch get into a food fight over because Omega doesn't like the way that the other clones are talking to her new friends. And this, we get this kind of kindred spirit thing that pops up, and that's when you realize that she's actually one of the Bad Batch, and she's the fifth clone that Lama Su was talking about, not Echo.
I kind of figured that was going to happen.
Yeah. After that fight happening, it goes out. Echo gets hit over the head with a tray and ends up in the infirmary. And we get a little Easter egg from the previous season of Clone Wars, which you won't know, but the robot that's in the room with her and helping her is the same robot who helped a couple of the original stormtroopers or clone troopers that kind of escaped their programming. That robot is the same one that helped them get through that.
It's a droid. Get it right.
That droid. Sorry. But I believe that is. That's what I took from him. That's what I saw it as. But they scan him, and he's like, "Oh, get it away from me," because he's got PTSD from being captured and tortured and used as a living computer. And then when he kind of comes to, she's like, "Yeah, I understand. I hate being attached to these machines too." And that's kind of the confirmation that she's literally been tampered with, in my opinion. That's where we know that they've been hooking her up to the machines, testing her, and doing stuff to her. So we know that she's been, quote unquote, Bad Batched as well. Grand Moff Tarkin takes over, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to put you guys through a test. Get out there. Let's see what you can do, because I've heard about you, but I have never seen you in action." They go out. They're being they're fighting training droids and basically whipping them up, and then Grand Moff Tarkin's like, no. Let's make this a live fire exercise. Send out the kill bots, the kill droids, and because I don't like these guys as it is. Grand Moff Tarkin does not like anything that's out of the ordinary. Like, his character in general in Star Wars is very, like, you see how prim and proper he is? Everything needs to be like that, or he doesn't like it. So he doesn't like the Bad Batch.
Funny.
Right. He doesn't like the Bad Batch at all. So he tries to kill them, but the Bad Batch doesn't take it. This scene was one of my favorites because they took that one kill droid down, and then he reprogrammed it and he piggybacked it, which I thought was hilarious. They end up taking it down. Crosshair pulls this move with Wrecker's knife that I thought was awesome. He's like, "Knife!" He throws it in the air. He hits it with his stun rifle, and it shoots it in the vibroblade into the robot, which obviously kills anything. Vibroblades are so cool. But they end up winning the day, and Tarkin's like, "Yeah, I don't like this at all." So he's like, "Well, let's see how they do in real action." He sends them off on a mission to root out some insurgents on Onderon. and they're thinking that, oh, it's probably, you know, like a droid army that someone missed in the cleanup. We're gonna go and take them out, and then we'll be back, because that's what they're used to fighting. They're used to fighting droid armies. So when they show up there and they're hunting this, you know, these insurgents, and then they realize, holy crap, they're real people, and they're being led by Saw Gerrera, which we know already.
Wait, that's Forrest Whitaker.
That's right? Forrest Whitaker, correct. Good job.
That's what I thought.
Yep.
I forgot that was another one that I remembered, but he looks much skinnier here.
Well, he's much younger, and he's got a whole big long storyline in Clone Wars.
Yeah, and then I tried to remember, like, that was in Han Solo that we saw him, or in Solo. So,
no,
right?
Rogue One.
Was it Rogue One?
Rogue One is the one we saw him in live action.
There hasn't been a lot. How much time has passed then?
Rogue One. So when the war ends, there's a very short time between the end of the war, the Empire becoming the Empire, then Vader or Anakin becomes Vader, and basically the whole Rogue One situation starts right about there. That's kind of they put Solo in the middle of basically between Clone Wars and Rogue One, because Solo is supposed to be like the start of the rebellion. When Enfys Nest and her group, like, they were supposed to be they created the rebellion, and then that's where Rebels starts. So there's a cartoon series called Rebels, and that goes through that whole storyline, and you meet Saw Gerrera in this, and then it'll transition into Rebel, and you see him more often in there.
You know, with all the different shows and movies that they have, how long do you think it would take to start from the very beginning time-wise and go through the entire thing?
Well, there are 8 seasons of Clone Wars alone. At, like, I don't know, I think there's like 24 episodes per season. Plus each one of the movies.
Are they half-hour episodes?
Yeah.
And then you have Mandalorian. Don't forget.
Well, no. Then you have Rebels, which is another show that's been on forever, plus all the movies, Mandalorian. You have, there's another one that's in between the Mandalorian and the end of episode 6. There's another set of cartoons in there, too.
There was also a Clone Wars movie, too, wasn't there? Was it a movie?
Well, you mean that? Yeah. There is like a cartoon movie that's in there somewhere, too. Yes. That's correct.
That one.
Right. So, and that's kind of like I don't know. It's like a thing about Anakin and dealing with the whole thing. But
okay, so where does that fall? Does that fall during the Clone Wars TV show?
Cartoon. Yeah. It's before he becomes Darth Vader, obviously.
Okay, so you'd have to watch Clone Wars, all the seasons, and then watch this. Is that right?
No, that falls in between one of the seasons. Because I think that they were planning on ending Clone Wars, and then they basically got pushed into doing another season. I think that movie falls in between there somewhere. Like, when they were kind of indecisive on whether they wanted to keep going, they kind of made that movie to keep people happy, and then they ended up doing another season or 2 afterward.
Okay,
so it's something like that. I don't remember the exact chronology, mainly because like, Clone Wars doesn't go in order. Like, if you watch it, it jumps around all over the place, so you kind of have to be careful how you watch it. And you can go online and find the exact chronological order of how things are supposed to go.
Just changing.
But basically, Saw Gerrera explains to him, like, we're just people trying to make it. We don't want to be part of the Empire. Like, yeah, the Clone Wars have ended, but the rebellion has just begun, and that's where we get the hey, there's going to be a Star Wars movie here. You know, that's where that comes in. So they're very good about tying what's considered cartoon canon into the actual live action, and it's very good that way. Once they figure out that, like, dude, this is just messed up, Grand Moff Tarkin already knows that that they didn't follow orders when it came to killing Caleb Dume, and because Crosshair, after Hunter put in his report that, yeah, we did our job, we killed the Jedi are dead, freaking Crosshair puts in a counter report that says, yeah, he didn't kill that kid. He says he did, but I don't think he killed that kid.
It was that droid. It was the droid that was there that was spying on him, and apparently sent the report back already.
No. I'm talking about when.
Really?
No. So after they did the battle simulation, Tarkin is talking to the prime minister, and he's like, "Well, we need to see how loyal they are because one of them already sent in a counter report stating that they didn't kill the Jedi." That robot then sent the report. Yeah, no. Then once they go on
the
that,
robots with those people.
Once they go on the insurgents, Grand Moff Tarkin sent a spy droid out with them to the planet to spy on them and see what they do and see if they actually follow orders and take out the insurgents. And when they don't, it reports back. They catch it, but not before it gets the message off to Grand Moff Tarkin. And at that point, they have to make a decision. Like, we can go back, but if we go back, they know we didn't follow orders, so we're going to be in trouble. So they're like, all right, we got to go back. We can't just run, which they could have. They could have just cut bait and run.
They were going back for Omega.
They could have just cut bait and run and probably gotten away with it. And if they had have done that, I think that Crosshair would have come around. But because they went back, Crosshair got caught. He gets reprogrammed. They augment his inhibitor chip to make him more compliant and more like the other clones, so where he's just going to do what he's told to do when he's told to do it. Doesn't matter who he's doing it against, and he gets turned against the rest of the Bad Batch. And when that happens, they grab Omega, they take her with them, and they take off. And that's
after a long firefight, and they realize that he's against them.
Right. Now, one of the things that I noticed right away during this episode was as that firefight was going on, they're like, "Where's Omega?" And Omega starts freaking one-shotting everybody. She's like, "One shot, one kill, blam, blam, blam," and I'm like, okay. Like, when did she pick up a freaking rifle? What are they training this kid to do? Right? But then I realized that the second episode, which we're going to get into in a second, there's this little something about Omega that makes her special. And I think it's not something that's been confirmed, but this is my theory on what's happening.
And I have also noticed this as well.
So in the second episode,
it's probably all over the internet. People already know.
Of course. In the second episode, Cut and Run, Cut is actually a clone soldier who not defected, what do they call it? Deserted the army. He left. He took off. And he's like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to fight for the Republic. I just want to live my life. I shouldn't have to fight if I don't want to. So he takes off. And he ends up settling down on a planet. He ends up marrying a Twi'lek woman. He has a couple kids with her. And they're hiding. They've been hiding on this planet the entire time. The problem is now the planet wasn't really occupied or paid much attention to by the Republic, because the Republic didn't really care. They were dealing with their own problems with the clone army. But now that the Empire has emerged, they're just taking over everything because they're trying to gather resources, people, and get control of the general universe. And in doing so, they end up on their planet that they've been hiding on, and they completely militarize the planet. You have to have a string code for your identity, which is basically like a passport. So once you have a string code, that gets attached basically to your DNA, and wherever you go, they can scan you and know who you are, who you're supposed to be, that kind of thing.
This is our future.
You're right. So when they get there, he's like, you know what? We're going to go here. It's like, I know where we can go. We're going to go and check out. We're going to go check in with Cut. We can hide out here on this planet, but they had no idea that the planet had been basically, overtaken by the Empire. And we get... you think that Hunter is just like this hard-nosed Rambo. He's literally Rambo. I'm just saying.
He does look like
like, he even has the red bandana and the big, vibro blade that looks like Rambo's knife. And he's the tracker. His special abilities, he's got heightened senses. So he can track and go and like hand-to-hand combat, tracking, all that stuff is his speciality. So he's supposed to be like the hard-nosed guy next to, aside from Crosshair, he's supposed to be like the next hardest dude on the team. And this whole kind of episode is about him breaking down and gaining some humanity as he realizes that he cares for Omega and he wants to take care of her. But at one point he's like, this isn't the right place for her. She needs to be safe. So he tries to pawn her off on Cut, but she's not having any of it. And when they as they're about to leave, she starts watching them, and this is where I caught on what was going on. So what I'm gonna call her ability is she's eidetic. She can watch people do things, and then she can mimic it perfectly. So she's basically Taskmaster from Marvel Comics. So if she watches them use equipment, or she watches them pilot a ship, or she watches Crosshair snipe people, she will be able to do that. And that's what I think that, like, her gunning down all those troopers, and then her being able to, her sneaking onto the ship was her, like, trying to watch. And they were very, very deliberate at watching her, like, see exactly what Tech was doing, what buttons he was turning, like, how he was flipping knobs and what he was doing. And I think that's going to end up being her kind of special ability. I don't want to say superpower, because that's not what they're going for.
There's another shot, I think it's in the first episode, where they're trying to sneak out, and they come up on the hallway comes to a T, and Hunter is in the front, and he puts his hand up to get everybody to stop.
Yeah.
She's literally right behind him.
And she does the same thing. Yep. Exactly. And it's not something that would have been that she would have been trained to do. Like that's something that she definitely picked up, by watching everybody. I meant to say, the whole thing, as they were escaping last episode, Lama Su helped them get out of there also.
Yeah.
Like, she knew what they were doing. She knew why they were there, and she did want them to take Omega away from there, because she knew if Omega was left to Grand Moff Tarkin, that she would have been just either destroyed or turned completely evil, which would have been a bad thing. But so they show up on this planet. They're hanging out with Cut and his kids and his wife. Omega makes a couple of mistakes. She kind of goes out into the wild and almost gets attacked by a Scathe cat.
Isn't that the same direction they came from?
It is, but you saw when they walked through there was the whole group, and there were the traps and everything. But when they walked through there, that cat was out there. It was hunting those little, like, bird things.
I didn't see.
And when it saw them, it kind of ran out into the bushes. So when they're like, "Oh, don't go past that fence," I knew that's what was pretty much getting ready to happen, was she's going to get attacked by that thing. I honestly thought that it was going to go the route of she was going to, like, go super commando and beat the crap out of it somehow. That's what I thought was going to happen. So I was a little disappointed when that didn't happen, but that's where I thought it was going to go. But Tech and Echo end up breaking into a security center. They managed to make chain codes for everybody, for Cut and his family.
Once they found out that the Empire was doing that, they had to sneak in there. So they go in there and they get those and they get them reprogrammed, while at the same time everybody else is coming in to the same area, and they were going to pass them off so that Omega could go with all those, go with the family
as their kids,
safe. She gets on the ship, while at the same time, Echo and Tech, and now the one dude, I forget his name, the big dude,
Wrecker.
Yeah, they're all under fire from the guards. So Hunter sees them on. He runs off with them, gets in the fight, and then guess who shows up?
She's not letting them get rid of her. She's not going to get dumped. That's the bottom line.
To be honest, I knew that was coming.
Here's my problem. So, and I know this, I don't like nitpicking Star Wars, but this is one thing that I had an issue with. When they got there, their codes were challenged. They gave it to them. They got in. They got onto the planet. They're on the planet. They're like, "Oh, we need to get off the planet, but we can't get on that transport because we don't have, a chain code." And they're like, "Okay, we'll get you chain codes for you and your family." At the point where they got the chain codes, they should have just loaded them all onto they should have just, let them, stay at your house. We'll have them come and pick up the ship. We'll get the chain codes, and then we'll fly back and pick you up and leave. Because when they flew out off of the planet, they just left. They didn't even get chased down by TIE fighters or anything. They just flew off the planet and left. Nobody chased them. I'm like, if that's the case, you should have just put them on the transport with you, or hid them in the transport when you got picked up, and then flew off the planet with their new chain codes. And then the next planet you land on, you just drop them off with their chain code, and they're good to go. Like, why did you go through the extra hassle of trying to get past the guards and everything else when you could have just literally done it yourself with no problem, apparently? So,
I don't understand the whole. I don't understand the whole point of getting them on there and doing that, because you obviously have fake ones,
right?
So they didn't expect the shooting to be happening either.
Right.
They expected to be able to just get it going and take off. And so, with that in mind, like you say, they could have just gone straight to their plane or whatever you call it, their ship,
their shuttle,
and
their attack
and
class
just
shuttle.
gotten on that and then just taken off and not even had to worry about any of that stuff. I don't understand. I didn't think about it until you mentioned it.
In my brain, like, you have this smuggler's hatch inside the ship that they were hiding
which
in.
They already showed.
Yeah, you hide everybody in that. And then you call them in, like, they come and get the ship, which I thought that was kind of cool. They were confiscating everyone's ships because they need them.
I thought it's funny that they put a boot on it.
Yeah, that's a thing that happens all the time. That happened to Luke, if you remember, in Solo, where he had his thing was booted. But like, they could have loaded everybody into that shuttle, right? And then basically hit out the way they did, done the same exact thing they did, and not have to worry about any of that craziness. Obviously, it wouldn't have been as poignant, but it would have made things a lot easier on everybody.
It wouldn't have been as actiony.
Right. I don't know. All I can say is I'm really enjoying the show. I love the Bad Batch from the minute they were introduced in Clone Wars, just because they were different. I love their helmets. Like, I'm a huge collector of Star Wars helmets, as you can see behind me. And I can't wait for those helmets to come out, because they will be the next thing to come out, and they will end up on my wall. But I can't wait for those to come out. I look forward to it. But yeah, that's the end of the episode. The next episode airs tomorrow. Today is Thursday, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the next episode airs tomorrow. So this will be going up tonight. And then we'll see what happens next week. I'm looking forward to it. The best part about it is this is completely new. Like, there's no idea of what's going to happen. We do know some characters that are going to cross over. So you know who Fennec Shen is, right? You remember her from
Fennec. The name is familiar.
She's from Mandalorian. May. Yes. Agent May. So that's Fennec Shen. She's going to be in this. She's going to be in this show. So now they've crossed Bad Batch over with Mandalorian because Fennec Shen is involved. So at some point, we are definitely going to see, I'm hoping, a live-action version of the Bad Batch would be awesome. But we'll start off slow with the cartoon, so I look forward to seeing where they go.
I got a suggestion who could play Crosshairs.
Who?
Whatever his name is.
If you...
Who are you thinking?
No, go ahead. I'm going to see who you come up with.
Not Nick Cage.
Okay, good.
I was thinking, and I forget his name, but he was in Prison Break, and what's his name? I forget it.
Miller?
I forget his name.
Are you talking about?
No, not Wentworth Miller. No, the creepy dude from.
Oh, T-Bone.
Teabag.
Teabag, yeah, Teabag. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that would be a really good version of him. The problem is he'd have to play all of them. The hard part about actually having a live action version of them is you would have to have 4 people that look very close to identical. And it'd be hard to do because they're all based off of Tamir Morrison's version of... They would have to be based off of a Tamir Morrison version of Boba Fett. Because that's what all the clones were based after, right? So they would need to look like him, but then they would have... he would have to play them maybe, but then they'd have to have I don't know. I don't know how they would do it. I don't know how they could pull it off.
I have the perfect solution for you. You use that de-aging program. You use it better than you did in Mandalorian with Luke. Take some tips from your Marvel team. They can tell you how they did Robert Downey Jr. You use the same dude, the dude I just mentioned.
Yeah.
And then he actually would play all the characters, or you could actually have stunt guys playing all the characters because, the one guy's much bigger.
Yeah.
You'd have stunt guys. And then you would take his face and manipulate it onto all the other characters to make them look more like the animated version.
I think my idea for it would be like if I were to come up with this, I think my idea would be that there's not an extended episode where they actually interact with everybody. I feel like it should just be like a battle scene where they're all fighting. And they all come in with their helmets and everything on, and they introduce themselves as the Bad Batch. They fight alongside them, and then they move on. That way they don't have to actually show their faces, but they can still have those characters in the story as a live-action version without actually having them, take on. Like, they have stormtroopers in there all the time with their helmets on. So I think doing it that way would be a way to have them interact with the live-action version of the shows and the movies, but then not have to worry about playing around with all that CGI. They just need, 5 guys that look the part, put them in there, and let's go. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to it.
Better, but whatever. All right. Like I said, I did enjoy both these episodes, and I look forward to seeing what we're going to see tomorrow. So on behalf of Vic,
that's me.
I'm Corey. Thanks for watching. We'll talk to you next time.
See ya.